Hi there, everybody. I'm Lynn Richmond. Welcome to our live broadcast from Fort DuPont Park in Washington, D.C. I'm the Communications and Public Affairs Specialist at the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. It's summertime and a great time to go visit a park or a recreation area. There are many wonderful undiscovered parks and recreation areas out there, probably right near you, to go and have fun and enjoy. July is Parks and Recreation Month. Today I'm here with Steve Fanny. He's a historian and park ranger at the Civil War Defenses of Washington. And we are in this very historic park. Steve, can you tell us a little bit about the Fort DuPont and the history behind it?
Absolutely. Well, welcome everyone. Hope everyone's having a great Thursday. And as Lynn was saying, there are a lot of hidden gems in Washington, D.C., and one of them is standing right behind me, Lynn here. It's Fort DuPont. The history will date back to the Civil War, when about 68 major forts were created to defend the city during the Civil War. And then right afterward, the land was basically reverted back to the original landowner. And then in the 1930s, the National Capital Commission basically acquired the land and subsequently turned it over to the National Park Service. And it's been managed by the National Park Service ever since. This park specifically, or this fort, is managed by National Capital Parks East, headquartered at Anacostia Park.
Now, what are some of the things?
People come out here for recreation. So you'll see people fishing on the Anacostia River. You see a ton of picnicking with families, especially throughout the weekend, all over the parks in Washington, D.C., including Fort DuPont. We do have some picnic areas out here. People do a lot of workouts, jogging, walking, things like that. So, and it's also a good escape as well. These fort sites are some of the only green spaces in Washington, D.C., so we invite people to come on out and see these wonderful sites.
Is there a concert series here?
There is. We're currently working on finalizing the contract as we speak, but the Fort DuPont concert series, it happens every summertime. It happens on the park grounds. This fort is just a small part of the Fort DuPont Park in general. It's almost 400 acres, and a little bit to our west is an outdoor venue for the Fort DuPont Summer Concert Series. And I know a lot of people have been asking about that, but be patient, and we're still working on the contract, and we'll be finalizing a schedule as soon as we can. So please be patient. We are working on it.
I think you can check the Facebook page, right?
That's right. We'll be announcing when we get the information about the scheduling and contracting on Facebook and on our website as well. Just go to nps.gov/Fort DuPont or Civil War Defenses of Washington at CWDW.
Now, how do you get to Fort DuPont Park?
Well, this is interesting, Lynn. A lot of people, when they hear a DuPont, they think a DuPont Circle in the northern part of D.C. We are actually in the southeast D.C. across the Anacostia River. And we're right off F Street southeast in Minnesota southeast. So right across the Anacostia River, as I said, we're about a mile east of Anacostia Park. So you can find all the information about the address and how to get here on our website, as I said, nps.gov/Fort DuPont.
So can you tell me a little bit more about the Civil War Defenses of Washington?
Yes, Lynn. Well, Washington, D.C. was the symbol of the Union. It was the capital of the United States. Obviously, the Lincoln administration was here. All the departments were here. The War Department was here. In many ways, this was the sword, symbol, and shield of the United States, of the Union. And it was under threat as soon as the Confederacy was formed, as soon as Virginia especially left to join the Confederacy in May of 1861. So what did the Federal Army started doing? Well, they started constructing earthworks, basically dirt forts that surrounded the city, including Fort DuPont. And by 1865, there were 68 major forts, 93 detached batteries, connected by 30 miles of military roads, and mounting almost 900 cannons. Washington, D.C. by 1865 was one of the most heavily fortified cities in the world. And we have some of those sites here today. These are hidden gems out in the middle of Washington, D.C. So it's important that we preserve these sites and for everyone to come and experience them.
Why is it important to preserve historic sites like this? What can people gain from that?
Well, Lynn, I think it's a portal to the past. When you look behind you, you see an earthen fortification built by the hands of humans. It took days and weeks and months to build these, and these became the frontline barriers to defend Washington, D.C. during the Civil War, and they're still around, and it shows how strong and how well these were made. And if we look just beyond the walls themselves, we can see human interest stories, the people that were here, not only the soldiers that helped build the forts, but the laborers as well. There were thousands of laborers, especially in this area, that helped build and maintain the forts. And this also became the symbols of freedom as well. Thousands of African Americans from Virginia and Maryland basically descended on Washington, D.C. during the Civil War. An estimated 50,000 African Americans fleeing slavery came to Washington, D.C., and a lot of them found sanctuary or refuge at the forts themselves, which is very interesting. A lot of them were, some squatted by the forts because they got protection from the federal armies. But in time, a lot of these people helped build the forts as laborers. And then by 1863, 1864, a lot of the men were enlisted to join the United States Colored Troops. So there's a lot of important history here. And it's 150 years old, and we still have it. So that's really important.
I understand you have a big event coming up this weekend.
We do, actually. Today is July 12th. 154 years ago, the Confederate Army marched from Frederick, Maryland, down towards Washington, D.C. in an attempt to capture the capital. The Battle of Fort Stevens in the Northwest D.C. began yesterday on July 11th in the early afternoon, and the battle is going to basically end today in the evening time by 10 p.m. But most importantly, Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States, will ride out and will be the only sitting president to be under enemy fire as he observes the battle. And most famously, someone utters to him, "Get down, you fool." That happens 154 years ago today. So we have our anniversary program this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. up at Fort Stevens in the Northwest D.C. off 13th Street in Quackenboss. Free of charge, come and see us. There's going to be reenactors there, living historians, tours. We're going to be firing muskets, all different types of activities. So please join us for the 154th anniversary of Fort Stevens.
Oh, thanks so much, Steve. Thanks so much for all that great information. Again, it's Parks and Recreation Month. Go out and enjoy a park, a historic park preferably.
Absolutely.
And if you do, please post about it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Tag the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation on Facebook.